were sort of, and it wasn't mandatory to go to school, and really these people that were teaching, they didn't have to be trained teachers, they just sort of open a school.
Well, sure.
Yeah, you know, I think I'll open a school. and they'd sort of open their doors and do what they can, right? So there was no curriculums, you know, mandated by the government, because the government was colonial government. I mean, it's a really, really interesting question and subject. Good for a thesis paper, perhaps. Maybe there is a thesis paper. Somebody should look at UVic, see if there's a thesis on education.
And I appreciate you mentioning that, I mean, this is Western ideas of education, because thousands of years of indigenous ways of knowing and being and learning.
And I think about this a lot. I'm going off topic here a little bit, but I think about this a lot. So the indigenous population are learning. They're learning in a way that they've learned from their predecessors. So they're passing down this oral tradition of education, and they're learning really practical things, how to survive, and you know, how to make tools, or whatever, how to weave, how to do different things. And then white people arrive, and they have, I always sort of equate it in my mind to sort of a alien experience. It's like if aliens arrived on our planet and began teaching us their whatever, it was so foreign to them. I mean, they knew nothing of history of England, the kings and queens. What is a king? What you know, Europe. I mean, they really, it was such a disconnect, and it must have been bewildering to us, to them, to this strange religion, we've got a strange language, strange ideas. Like really, you know, and I mean, this is just conjecture, but you know, I don't think finding common ground was really a thing that educators at the time looked for. You know, it was an imposition, imposing your views, imposing your belief system, your education system on somebody else. It must have been bewildering. That's the right word, I think. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that? You know, those first interviews.
Better get back on script.
No, but I think it's really important that it's not like, okay, education started when St. Anne's Schoolhouse started, but that learning and education has been thousands of years here on this land.
And in every culture.
Yeah, totally.
In every culture, and we all started somewhere with some kind of education. It's just not that formal,
right?
Western education.
For sure.
Yeah. So sorry, I'll go back on script.
No, it's just that happened all around the world.
It did, absolutely.
And so to pick it out for Victoria.
Well, it's sort of what we're talking about, right? Right. It was sort of, that's why we're here.
Yeah, no, it's not a unique story,
it's
but
not
it's an
unique,
important story, especially for visitors coming from, say, the States, and they don't know the sort of the long history of this land in relation to both settlers and indigenous communities. So, but were you gonna...
Wikipedia, which is the #1 source,
absolutely.
says the Craig Flowers Schoolhouse was to be the third school constructed in the colony of Vancouver Island. So I'm not sure what the first two are, but it's not the first one. So.
Did they have a date?
It's interesting too. Like I just did look at that as well. It said the building was completed in 1856.
Yeah.
Oh,
So that's actually before the sisters came.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like it burned down.
No, and they say they started the march the same year.
So actually, I'm going to send you the link, but I hadn't done it yet.
Okay, good.
So I'll do it after.
Great.
But you could say,
But I was trying to
you
figure
could
out
say
what
the
else I
oldest
could
Catholic.
find.
Just throw the word Catholic in there, and you're all good.
Or one of the.
You can say one of the oldest schools and the first
It's
Catholic
always
school.
good not to say the first, the best, the last, because somebody's always going to challenge you.
But it is the oldest building in town, I think.
I think the building in Oak Bay on the Todd
Todd
House is older. Yeah, and also the building on the corner.
Design Academy?
But Todd House,
The Pacific Design Academy, the Guild, that kind of
Yeah, no, not that one. It's on the corner of Government and Courtney, and it's a gift shop now. It was the Windsor Hotel,
Oh,
and
yes.
it's very, very old, but it's been completely gutted and changed. And
Todd House was from 1852, and I thought that this cabin is from 1843.
oh yeah, but we don't have any firm documentation though. I cannot prove it.
Yeah, and also, do you know, what happened to the cabin after it was a schoolhouse? Because I talked to Fern Perkins, who's a descendant of Isabella and Charles Ross, and she said that Isabella Ross actually lived in there
She
for a while.
actually did. She actually did.
Yeah.
So they used it as a variety of things. So they used it as where they taught the boys. They used it as a temporary hospital, and Isabella Ross did spend the last days of her life in there and died in the cabin, as far as I know. It was a building they could use for whatever purpose they wanted, and they did use it a lot but it kind of it's not part of the record and the discussion thing. I'll read something and said from a student, say from the 1870s, and she'll say, and I did my sewing up in the attic of the old school. So she's from the context, I know that she was up there in the attic doing her sewing.
It was used as a hospital and as a storage facility too, and I guess a place where people could live if they needed it.
That's right, yeah.
And then would they pay rent to the sisters or not?
Depends if they could or not. The sisters did a lot of charity work and wouldn't turn anybody away. Yeah.
Is this in here, is this captured, the different uses of the building?
Don't think so. Is that something you want me to add?
Yeah.
Different uses? Okay. Do that. Okay. Now, John wants me to be on script. All right, but I won't tell him there was no script to begin with.
But you mentioned, Carey, that this is a working document.
This is
so
a working document, and really, it's for you, so whatever you need, and I'm really interested in what questions you get.
Yes.
What are the if you can record that,
We put
This-
that in the law.
this
Yes.
okay, and then if I could get a copy of the log, then it can inform what I write, and this can grow, and be more useful, I guess, as a document. But it was sort of a starting point.
Mhm.
Yeah. So. Right.
John, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to say, are we in general questions or?
Sure. Anything. Yes.
Yeah, page 15
Yes.
is the cabin on the move. The
It is cabin on the move.
question I get moved
Okay.
quite a bit,
Okay.
and I think this clears it up.
Okay.
When it was moved from the south side of Hayward Avenue, which is
Yeah.
now cabin close to the north side, to
Yeah.
the side of the gymnasium, that was in 1966. The bottom picture
Mhm.
has a title of 1966.
Right.
So when people have asked me how it moved from one side of the road to the other, I wasn't actually sure of the date.
Okay.
So it could have been, by mechanical means, or it could have been just rolled across on logs or something like that. But so you're quite sure that it moved in 66 on a truck?
Yes, because they built a building on that spot, in the spot that it moved from.
Yes,
They built
right.
another school and they called it the Centennial School, so it was
Ah.
1967.
Okay. But then
So that's a good clue.
But then the top picture, again, this is the one that's on the wall, right?
Yeah.
And so we.
And it's a series of,
We got that straight now. Yeah.
it's a series of 12 photos, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
And is that the same time?
Yes,
or is
that's the
is
same-
that the
that's-
74 one?
that's the same time. I
Same
think.
time,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because it's a series of the.
You see, when people look at that and say, look at that, that was, what do you call it, the people who live in houses.
It was,
Nickel Brothers.
Nickel
They
Brothers.
said that was Nickel Brothers bringing it over to where it is now, but that's not true.
It's not, no.
So we don't have anything that shows it
No, we
coming to where it
don't,
is
and
now.
then,
Yeah.
sometime
That's fine,
I'll ask the museum if they have, they must have taken some photos, I would
Mhm.
imagine, I have.
Yeah, because I was trying to
I'll
figure
look it
out where this was when it was going to the museum.
Yeah, so I tried to make it as clear,
Yeah, no, it's good.
because, yes, there is some confusion.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
And there are sort of stories circulating that it was moved to its original location from somewhere else, but there's no,
Yeah, because
there's
the other picture of it is later with the telephone poles and the
Mhm.
picture and so on, and that looks like it's back on the south side.
yeah, I think I know the one.
But
you mean.
maybe that's not true. It's probably not a big deal. We should just say we don't know.
But you're saying, John, that you get that question from
Get that
visitors?
question quite a bit, yeah. Anybody who's involved in moving houses, there seems to be
Totally.
a lot of people.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
is it one of these photos? Have a troll through there and see
Oh,
what
okay.
you can. By, sorry, I'm just gonna interrupt here,
Yeah,
interrupt
sure.
myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
By 1930s,
That one there.
that one, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's much later, that's in the 20s
Yeah.
probably.
So in the 30s.
But it looks like it's on the south side.
Yeah, it is on the south side, I think, that one, because it's Beacon Hill Park in the back.
That's right, yeah. You see.
Yeah.
So people see these, notice these things.
So it was in really bad shape in the 1930s, and in 1937, the sisters had their, 1933, the sisters had their 75th anniversary of arriving in Victoria. So one of their projects for that anniversary was to restore it, and they restored it to this, and they did nice little gardens
Yeah,
around, and that was their,
garden and everything,
yeah,
really,
that was their project for
Kitchen,
their
sorry.
75th anniversary.
But no chapel, of course.
They
had gone by.
they had a makeshift chapel in there, they had a,
No, but the chapel that was added on, first of all, that.
to St. Anne's
interior-
Academy.
Yeah, that interior, I think you say.
What's you call the addition, is that what you're referring to?
Well, the addition is this. So the addition, this is the only, well, it's not the only, it does show up in photos in the background, but, so this is the original cabin, this is a painting by Sister Mary Sophie. So this piece here is the original cabin,
Right.
and this is the addition. So it was exactly the same size as the original cabin.
So it's on page 13.
Is it probably a page 13, but not quite as large. And it had a little steeple on it and a school bell in it. And this is the piece that has supposedly fell down in 30 years later in a snowstorm.
Ah, okay, that's it that fell down.
So this is the one with the steeple on it. So it does show up in the back of some of the photos. You can see it here in this photo. You can see, here's the steeple. That's the original, that's the addition. That's a Maynard photo.
Yeah, okay.
All right. So I added something that hasn't been in any of your documents. Where did they go? So after the sisters arrived in 1858, by 1864 they had purchased 400 acres near Duncan, which you might know as Providence Farm now.
Right, yes.
And they started a school for First Nations girls. This was in response to Father Rondeau was one of the other thing you don't hear of is when the four sisters came, there was 4 priests with them as well. And this is something that you don't hear that often.
That's right. Yeah.
Because women didn't travel by themselves, especially women religious, and so there was 4 priests. One you might have heard was Father Michaud, so he was the builder of the original cathedral that is now the chapel at St. Anne's Academy. And he also built that addition, and he went on to be an architect. He went back to Quebec and he built Our Lady Queen of the World Cathedral, Montreal, and other churches all around Quebec.
Oh, I've been to Our Lady Queen of the World.
Yeah, he designed that.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah, he became quite a well-known architect. So there was Father Michaud, Father Thibault, Father
Pierre Rondeau.
Pierre
and
Rondeau.
Charles Barry.
Did I have that?
Father Pierre Rondeau, Father Charles Barry, Father Signe Baudry, and the 2 clerics of Saint Brother Joseph Institution and Brother F.J.
Right. Thank you.
Page 8.
And I can tell you're bilingual. And so 1864, they've gone up to Duncan, and because Father Pierre Rondeau, he had a school for boys, and he says, we need a school for girls up here, so they went. And then, this is all the places they went after that. This is all the missions they opened.
Where did the priests stay when they came to Victoria? Because I know, from what I've heard, the sisters first went to the Halkins for dinner, and then they went over to their new convent and found it in a mess.
They did. That is correct. That is a correct story, Benton.
Yeah,
So beside, sorry, not beside, on the other side of Humboldt Street was where Bishop Demer's house.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
it was the bishop's house. So he would have had rooms there and that's where Mass was first held. Catholic Mass was first held in Victoria. It was in the bishop's house. And I don't know, but I didn't bring a photo of it, but I have a photo of it. And it ultimately Michaud built the church just to the left of that building. To the right of that building. So they would have stayed there. They would have stayed with him in his house.
And then the sisters stayed at their convent, even though it was in a mess.
Yes. No, yeah, and he would have had probably a nice house for the, relatively. Yes. It doesn't seem fair, does it? Yes. So I thought it was, I thought it'd be helpful just to have where all their missions were and where they went.
And which of the Duncans is the Providence Farm thing?
It is.
Because people ask that. When was that built?
It was 1864.
Okay.
So you'll see St. Anne's School,
St.
Duncan.
Anne's School. Yeah, because way down it goes to the lower, no, where are we, Duncan? Something Indian school.
Yeah, St. Catherine's.
St.
Indian.
Catherine's.
St. Catherine's
It was
Indian
much
school.
later, much later.
So that's not Providence Farm?
No, it was
okay.
further up the road towards Duncan.
Yep.
It's torn down, they tore it down about, I don't know, 6 years ago. The concrete slab's still there. You can-
So when Providence Farm was first built, it was a school, or was it for teaching the First Nations?
It was, it changed, it had 4 iterations.
Okay.
So at first it was a school to teach First Nations girls.
Okay.
Then it became an orphanage for First Nations girls. Then it became a boys' school, and then it became a co-ed school. Okay, so that in the time span between 1864 and 1964.
Was it called a farm from the start, or was it? Where does that name come? Providence Farm?
It was Providence. No, Providence Farm was named in 1979. Providence Farm.
Fine.
So the sisters left the building. The Queen of Angels School was built in Duncan.
Okay.
So there was St. Catherine's and Queen of Angels was built in 64.
Yep.
The sisters closed the school. They kept it as a convent, so they lived in the giant building.
Yeah.
They taught at St. Catherine's and at Queen of Angels School.
Okay.
And then they decided, and actually some of you may know, you'll know Sister Frida Rabb. She was a big promoter of changing this, because they had 400 acres. It's still they bought 400 acres,
yeah.
They still have 400 acres. So big building on it, farm buildings, and she wanted to create an alternative community.
Okay.
So her vision and the vision of other people were to make it a safe place for people with mental challenges to be able to work and contribute something.
Okay.
And so it had a rocky start, but eventually people came on board, and in early 2000s, the sisters gave the buildings and 400 acres to the, what's it called? Providence Farm Therapeutic Community Association, something like that. So, so people with challenges, mostly mental challenges, can work in the nursery. They can do woodworking. They have an alternative school on the property. There's a cooking. They do cooking. They have a big commercial kitchen there. They can do cooking courses so that they
Therapeutic riding.
that's a separate organization, but yes, the therapeutic riding is on the property, but a different organization, and it's a safe place for them to be and do something and be built up, and so it's really a going concern now, and it's a beautiful place to visit.
Yeah, because the picture on the wall makes it almost look like a senior's residence. There's somebody gardening.
Yes,
in the picture.
yeah, and they were always, every mission had a farm.
Yeah.
And had an orchard and grew vegetables, because they had to feed themselves and their students, or their
Now they
patients.
sell them too.
And they sold them too.
No, they sell them still now.
They sell them at Providence Farm, yes.
Right.
Huge.
Yeah, and you can buy plants, and you can buy, yeah.
And I noticed here that they have Little Flower Academy, and it says here that it closed in 1913, but I've seen pictures on the wall of St. Anne's Schoolhouse that show them in a modern school uniform in color, so
Yes.
maybe they're actually still operating.
They are. So what happened was the sisters started the school in 1912.
Yeah.
And a new bishop was appointed, and if you go further along, you'll find it reopened in 21. I might not have put it in there, but I'll check. So a new bishop came, he said, I wanna live there, I wanna live in that house. So he lived in they had shut down the school. And he lived in the house until 1921. And then the sisters got their building back because it was owned by the sisters, not by the diocese. And they reopened the school in 21, it's still operating today.
We get people coming that know.
Yes, it's still.
Carey, on Williams Lake, you have is this when they handed over the school to the old buildings? 1888, because when I started teaching in Williams Lake in 1965, it was still a big building considered.
Yes, they were there for a very short time.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I've forgotten why they left, but yeah, somebody else, another group took over.
The Oblate
Was it the Oblate or it was the Sisters of St. Joseph or somebody?
Yeah,
somebody took over that.
because the building wasn't raised until the 1970s.
Okay.
It was completely a wood ring.
Yeah.
I went up and they were still doing the child roundups.
Yeah. Huh? Yeah, the sisters were just there for just a
It was a
child
residential
roundup.
store.